Have you ever caught yourself talking out loud when nobody else is around? Maybe you're narrating your actions while cooking, giving yourself a pep talk before an important meeting, or even debating with yourself about what to watch on Netflix tonight. If you do this regularly, you might think it's a quirky habit or even worry that it's a sign of something wrong. But here's the truth, talking to yourself is far more common than you think, and it actually reveals some fascinating things about your personality and cognitive abilities. In fact, science suggests that people who engage in self-talk often share specific psychological traits that set them apart. So if you're someone who enjoys a good conversation with yourself, stick around, because what you're about to discover might completely change how you see this habit. By the end of this video, you'll understand why self-talk might actually be one of your greatest mental strengths. Self-talk is completely normal. First things first, let's address the elephant in the room. No, talking to yourself doesn't mean you're losing your mind. In fact, it's one of the most natural things your brain does. Research in cognitive psychology shows that most people engage in some form of self-talk throughout their day. Whether it's internal, like that constant stream of thoughts in your head, or external, where you actually speak out loud, self-talk is a fundamental part of how humans process information. Think about it. When you're trying to remember where you left your keys, you might say out loud, "Okay, I came in through the front door, put my bag down on the chair, so the keys must be." That's your brain using language to retrace your steps and solve a problem. Children do this naturally when they're learning new skills. You've probably seen a young child playing alone, narrating every action. Now the car goes up the ramp, vroom vroom, and now it goes down. Psychologists call this private speech, and it's a crucial part of cognitive development. Here's the interesting part. While many adults internalize this process as they grow older, some people continue to think out loud, and research suggests this might actually give them certain cognitive advantages. So what does it mean if you're one of those people who never quite stop talking to yourself? Let's dive into the first major trait. Enhanced problem-solving abilities. If you talk to yourself regularly, there's a good chance you're a natural problem solver. Here's why. When you verbalize your thoughts, you're essentially forcing your brain to organize information in a linear, structured way. A study conducted at the University of Wisconsin-Madison found that people who talked to themselves while searching for objects in a supermarket were actually more efficient at finding what they needed. The act of saying, "I'm looking for bananas," out loud helped participants clarify their goal and stay focused on the task. This happens because speaking engages multiple areas of your brain simultaneously. You're not just thinking about the problem, you're also activating the language centers of your brain, which helps you process information more thoroughly. Let's say you're trying to decide between two job offers. If you talk through the pros and cons out loud, Company A offers better benefits, but Company B has more growth potential, you're more likely to notice details you might have missed if you were just thinking silently. This is especially powerful for complex decisions. When you hear your own reasoning spoken aloud, it's easier to spot gaps in your logic or identify which option actually aligns better with your values. But problem solving isn't the only cognitive advantage self-talkers have. There's another trait that's equally impressive. Stronger memory and focus. People who talk to themselves tend to have better memory retention and sharper focus. And this isn't just anecdotal, it's backed by solid research. Psychologists have found that when you say something out loud, you engage what's called the production effect. This means your brain processes the information more deeply because multiple cognitive systems are involved. You're thinking it, saying it, and hearing it all at once. Imagine you're preparing for a presentation. If you rehearse your key points by speaking them out loud to yourself, you're far more likely to remember them under pressure than if you just read them silently. The act of verbalizing creates stronger neural pathways, making the information easier to recall later. The same principle applies to everyday tasks. When you verbalize what you're doing, "I'm putting my phone on the kitchen counter," you're creating a mental bookmark that makes it easier to remember later. This is why people who talk to themselves often seem to lose things less frequently. There's also a focus component here. When you're working on something challenging and you talk yourself through it, okay, first I need to finish this section, then I'll review the numbers, you're actively directing your attention and reducing mental clutter. In a world full of distractions, the ability to maintain focus through self-directed speech is a genuine advantage. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Self-talk doesn't just help with practical tasks, it also reveals something important about emotional intelligence. High emotional awareness. If you talk to yourself, especially about your feelings, you likely have a strong sense of emotional awareness. This is the ability to recognize, understand, and process your own emotions in a healthy way. When you're upset about something and you find yourself saying, "I'm really frustrated right now because I feel like my effort isn't being recognized," you're doing something psychologically powerful. You're labeling your emotion and identifying its cause, which is a key component of emotional regulation. Research in psychology shows that putting feelings into words, a process called affect labeling, actually reduces the intensity of negative emotions. When you talk through your feelings, you activate the prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, which helps calm down the amygdala, the emotional alarm system. People who regularly engage in this kind of self-talk tend to be more self-aware. They understand their triggers, recognize their patterns, and can often work through difficult emotions without needing constant external validation. This doesn't mean they don't value other people's input, it just means they've developed a strong internal compass. They can check in with themselves, ask, "How am I really feeling about this?" and arrive at honest answers. This level of emotional awareness is also linked to better mental health outcomes. People who process their emotions through self-talk are often better at managing stress, anxiety, and everyday challenges. But emotional awareness is just one side of the coin. There's another personality trait that often goes hand in hand with self-talk, and it might surprise you. Independence and self-sufficiency. People who talk to themselves are often highly independent and comfortable with solitude. They don't necessarily need constant social interaction to feel fulfilled because they've developed a rich internal world. This isn't about being antisocial or avoiding people. Rather, it's about having a healthy relationship with yourself. When you can have productive conversations with yourself, you become less dependent on others for validation, direction, or entertainment. Think about someone who can spend an entire weekend alone and feel perfectly content. They might talk themselves through a home improvement project, coach themselves through a workout, or process their week's events through verbal reflection. This ability to be your own companion is a form of emotional maturity. Self-sufficient people tend to make decisions more confidently because they trust their own judgment. They've spent enough time in dialogue with themselves to know what they value, what they want, and what aligns with their goals. This doesn't mean they isolate themselves or don't value relationships. In fact, people who are comfortable with themselves often form healthier relationships because they're not looking for others to complete them or constantly affirm their worth. They can show up as whole individuals who choose connection rather than need it desperately. And that foundation of self-sufficiency often starts with something as simple as being able to talk things through with yourself. Now, there's one more trait we need to talk about, and it's possibly the most empowering one of all. Growth mindset and self-motivation. If you talk to yourself, especially in encouraging ways, you likely have what psychologists call a growth mindset and strong self-motivation. A growth mindset is the belief that your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. People with this mindset don't see failure as permanent, they see it as a learning opportunity. And self-talk plays a crucial role in maintaining this perspective. When you catch yourself saying things like, "That didn't work, but now I know what to try next," or "This is hard, but I'm getting better," you're actively reinforcing a growth-oriented narrative. You're coaching yourself the same way a good mentor would. Athletes have known this for decades. Elite performers regularly use self-talk to maintain confidence and push through challenges. Before a big moment, they might say, "You've trained for this. You're ready. Just focus on one step at a time." This isn't just positive thinking, it's a strategic mental tool. The same principle applies to everyday life. When you're learning a new skill and you talk yourself through the frustration, "It's okay, everyone struggles at first, just keep practicing," you're building resilience. You're literally rewiring your brain to see obstacles as temporary rather than insurmountable. People who motivate themselves through self-talk tend to achieve more of their goals because they've developed an internal support system. They don't wait for someone else to believe in them, they've learned to be their own biggest advocate. So if you're someone who talks to yourself regularly, you now know that this habit is connected to some genuinely impressive traits. But what does all of this really mean for your life? Chapter 8, Conclusion, Embrace your self-talk. If you talk to yourself when no one's around, you're in good company, and you're exercising your brain in ways that can genuinely benefit your life. Let's recap what we've discovered. People who engage in regular self-talk tend to have enhanced problem-solving abilities, stronger memory and focus, high emotional awareness, a sense of independence and self-sufficiency, and a growth mindset coupled with self-motivation. These aren't random quirks, they're interconnected traits that stem from a willingness to engage actively with your own thoughts. When you talk to yourself, you're not just filling the silence, you're thinking more clearly, processing emotions more effectively, and guiding yourself toward better decisions. So the next time you catch yourself having a conversation with no one else in the room, don't feel embarrassed. Recognize it for what it is, a sign of an active, reflective, and capable mind. The key is to make sure your self-talk is constructive. Pay attention to the tone you use with yourself. Are you encouraging and solution-focused, or overly critical and harsh? The most successful self-talkers are those who speak to themselves with the same kindness and support they'd offer a good friend. In a world that constantly pulls our attention outward, the ability to turn inward, have a conversation with yourself, and come out with clarity is a genuine superpower. So embrace your self-talk. Own it. Use it intentionally. Your inner dialogue might just be one of the most valuable tools you have. If this video resonated with you, give it a thumbs up and let me know in the comments. Do you talk to yourself regularly? What's the most common thing you find yourself saying? I'd love to hear your experiences. And if you want to explore more about the fascinating ways your mind works, subscribe for more psychology content that helps you understand yourself better. Thanks for watching, and remember, the conversation you have with yourself matters more than you think.